The sky above Veltraxis, for wasn't just on fire, it was disdainfully on fire, as if the atmosphere itself was embarrassed to be caught in the same quadrant as the conflict below. Bombs flowered into chromatic blooms over blackened ridges, and anti-air lasers stitched drunken lines across the starscape. Somewhere amidst this orchestrated annihilation, General Rhea Mallory of Earth's Planetary Defense Forces dragged her fractured body across a field of glass shard moss, her tactical visor cracked and sparking beside one temple. She didn't groan. That would have been giving the universe the satisfaction. Tactical systems at 12%, chirped her combat assistant AI, nicknamed Widget, in a voice that sounded far too cheerful for someone announcing her imminent death. On the bright side, you've outlived 78% of your squad. Put that on my tombstone, Rhea muttered, spitting blood, thick and metallic tasting, into the ash-dusted soil. She'd known the mission was a trap before she even set foot on Veltraxis. You don't get to be the only female general in a military engineered for mediocrity and male bonding without learning how to sniff out bureaucratic sabotage. But orders were orders, and Earth's military high command, glorious in its indecision and overcompensated mustaches, had insisted this symbolic strike would be good for morale. That's what they called it, a symbolic strike. As if her soldiers had died for punctuation. She clawed herself behind the smoldering husk of a sandcrawler, her once impressive armor looking like a melted art installation. On her right, Sergeant Hanno's body lay motionless, legs gone. His chest unit blinked once, then died. Rhea didn't have time to close his eyes. Not with the glitterborn troops sweeping the field. Elegant monsters in crystalline exosuits, their rifles looking like harps and sounding like bird funerals. Rhea Mallory, whispered a voice above her, and for a split second, she thought death had picked up a posh accent. Then the voice coughed. Captain Nema crawled beside her, half her face caked in blood, her good eye scanning the battlefield like it owed her money. They're pinning us in. They knew our coordinates before we hit Atmo. I'm aware, Rhea said, managing to sit up, her ribs protesting like union workers. Nema looked at her, grim. It was high command. They sold us out. I tapped into the off-grid comms relay just before we were cut off. A direct line to the Empire's emissary vessel. Voice print matches Admiral Jelv. Rhea stared at her, not blinking. That sanctimonious ornament of a man. Confirmed 3 times. Rhea's breath caught, a different kind of pain twisting under her breastplate. She had trained under Jelv, fought beside him when Earth's moon colonies revolted. He once told her she was the most promising officer Earth ever ignored. Now he had thrown her into a slaughter for reasons that would be discussed in whispers during Senate hearings, then redacted from the final report. Status of evac? Rhea asked, switching her rifle to manual override. The screen blinked red. Ammo depleted. Nema coughed wetly. Command cut us off. They've already declared the operation lost due to unforeseen cosmic interference. We're dead in the files. Of course. Faster than a retreat. More reliable than a lie. Earth's bureaucracy. Something exploded too close. Shards of molten skyplate whistled past. Rhea ducked and winced, her side searing with pain. We need to disappear, Nema said, voice ragged. Rhea nodded. Fall back to the trench line near the subridge. I'll cover you. You won't survive. I'm aware. Nema hesitated. General? Go, Captain. Make my death inconvenient. She waited until Nema was gone, her silhouette slipping between smoke columns and glowing debris. Then Rhea took a deep breath and stood. Or tried to. Her left leg had other opinions. Widget buzzed nervously. Pain levels suggest spinal trauma. I recommend a nap and a long cry. Override emotional diagnostics, she hissed, dragging herself upright by sheer resentment. Override acknowledged. You are, statistically speaking, one furious anomaly. She limped forward into the kill zone. The Glitterborn had stopped advancing. They were watching her. Dozens of them, their armor humming with slow pulses of indigo light. No firing. No movement. Just observation. As if she'd become an oddity. One of them stepped forward. His armor was different, more ornate, etched with symbols Rhea vaguely remembered from Imperial briefings. High-ranking, possibly ceremonial, definitely full of itself. "You are the Earth General," it said. Its voice was musical, layered, like a chorus refusing to harmonize. "The one they sent to perish. They have a habit of that," she said. "You walked into our symphonic killfield," it continued. "Either you are very brave or very expendable. Why not both?" A pause. The creature tilted its head, amused. She coughed again. "Well, gonna shoot me, or do you prefer dramatic tension?" "We do," it said. "We have entire operas built on nothing but it." Rhea took another step. Her visor's HUD was mostly dead, but she still had instinct and contempt. "Tell your emperor," she began, "that Earth's last general died looking her enemy in all 12 eyes." The soldier's aura glowed violet, curiosity. "The emperor is not here. He sends his voice, his shadow, his will." "Then tell his shadow to grow a spine." It lifted its weapon, and then the ground beneath her feet betrayed its loyalty to gravity. The battlefield wasn't just debris and corpses. It was terrain that had been rewritten by orbital tectonic lasers. And now a long-forgotten fault line, covered in charred moss and acidic ash, gave way under Rhea's boot. She fell. No scream. Just a long, patient descent into darkness that tasted like iron and loss. Then nothing. Silence. Rhea's eyes blinked open to the soft sound of water dripping. For one perfect second, she thought she was dead. But death, she reasoned, wouldn't smell like wet leather and burnt ozone. She was underground, deep. The walls were crystalline, the colors shifting in lazy waves. A subterranean crevice lit by bioluminescent lichen and strange spores that drifted like disappointed jellyfish. She tried to sit up and realized her armor was gone. Instead, she wore a patched, translucent fabric that pulsed faintly with her heartbeat. "You are less terrible looking when unconscious," said a voice. A silhouette slithered into view, slender, multi-limbed, covered in floating polyps that blinked independently. Rhea blinked. "Friend or colonoscopy?" "Neither. I am Yixtal of the 34th Decline, historian, scavenger, collector of semi-valuable corpses. You dragged me down here? You fell on my mushroom farm. I took that as a sign. A sign of that the universe occasionally apologizes." Rhea sat up slowly, every joint registering a formal complaint. "How long was I out?" "Hours. Long enough for your planet to declare you missing, presumed vaporized. Your people are very efficient at forgetting their own." "Tell me something I don't know." Yixtal offered a bowl of some viscous fluid that looked like it had emotional baggage. Rhea drank it anyway. It tasted like boiled regrets and cinnamon. "What's the situation topside?" she asked. "Empire forces are consolidating." The Emperor's envoy was pleased. They broadcast a victory poem across 5 channels. One stanza was dedicated to your glorious collapse into irrelevance. How poetic. They are not known for humility. Rhea stood, testing her weight. Pain everywhere. But beneath it, a heat. Not fury. Not yet. Something sharper. Something ancient. A reckoning blooming in her chest like a black star. "Do you have weapons?" she asked. Yixtal blinked in several directions. "I have artifacts. Repurposed things. Mostly decorative." "Show me." "Why?" "Because I'm not dead yet." "That's a matter of perspective." "No. That's a matter of vengeance." Yixtal didn't respond immediately. But after a moment, he turned, slithering deeper into the cave. "Follow me, anomalous general. Let's see what the refuse of fallen empires can offer a woman declared erased." Rhea followed, limping but upright, each step dragging her closer not to recovery, but to a different kind of survival. One with teeth. Behind her, the battlefield above smoldered on. But below, something began to stir. Not hope. Not quite. Something more dangerous. A plan. And in the dark, her lips curled into something dangerously close to a smile. The underbelly of Veltraxis, for it turned out, was not a grave. It was a marketplace. Rhea Mallory stood under the flickering neon script of a sign that read Galactic Clearance Liquidation Depot. All empires must go, in 8 languages, none of which had the courtesy of a proper grammar structure. All around her, the once dormant catacombs had been hollowed into a sprawling bazaar of refuse, weapon salvage, and whispered treason. Makeshift tents sprouted from reactor husks. Former diplomats hawked black market secrets from behind shattered flight consoles. Children, possibly children, gnawed on data drives like candy. Yixtal slithered beside her, holding up what looked like a broken antennae fused to a music box. This will explode if you hum in B minor. I'll try to be emotionally neutral then. They'd moved through his network of tunnels into the outer ring of Blackgrave Station, a subterranean free zone where the discarded artifacts of conquest came to gather dust and develop petty rivalries. Everything was for sale, including philosophy, time, and knockoff versions of Earth's political history. Rhea had reassembled herself, more or less. Yixtal had provided a modified exosuit cobbled together from 3 different species militaries. It hissed when she moved and whispered old slogans during idle cycles. Her favorite so far was Glory Through Compliance, sponsored by Nutrient Paste. She walked with purpose now, posture regained. But the burn behind her sternum remained, the same fire that had kept her alive when logic begged otherwise. High Command had erased her. Earth had disavowed her. That meant she was free, which was dangerous. As they passed a stall selling authentic betrayal tokens, 5 credits for a hologram of your worst memory, Rhea turned to Yixtal. You said the Emperor's making a stop here. Indeed. The Una Syndicate is negotiating weapon-sharing rights with the Empire. A mostly symbolic gesture. But symbolic gestures kill just as well as tactical ones. And when Yixtal consulted a piece of fungus that beeped when squeezed. Within the hour, she stopped. Calculated. 1 hour. That meant she had 60 minutes to turn a derelict, capitalist tomb of has-beens and war criminals into her battleground. And maybe, just maybe, bring down a god. She pushed open the curtain to the bar known as the Severed Limb, which, to her disgust, served drinks through suction tubes that connected directly to a consumer's adrenal glands. She ignored the menu. It blinked at her lasciviously. I need to find a way into the diplomatic chamber. Which one? Yixtal asked. There are 3. 1 for ceremony, 1 for backchanneling, and 1 for plausible deniability. Guess which one I want. Yixtal looked nervous, for the first time since they'd met. His polyps dimmed a shade. The Emperor's voice does not suffer unauthorized presence lightly. Good thing I'm not authorized. She scanned the room. In the corner sat a trader wearing the traditional garb of the Unas, 12 layers of organza, a breathing crown, and a translator node that pulsed beige, a sign of capitalist negotiation. I'll need a disguise, she muttered. One of theirs. I must inform you, the Una speak in emotional frequencies. The suit will transmit yours. Rhea considered that. What if I'm emotionally constipated? Then you may pass for royalty. 2 deals, 1 bribe, and a surprisingly tasteful knife duel later. Rhea stood inside a janitorial shaft near the diplomacy wing, stuffed into a borrowed Unas exosuit that made her look like a breathing lampshade in denial. The translator pulsed faintly. You are currently emitting stubborn disgust. She gritted her teeth. That'll do. The corridor outside shimmered with damp light. 2 sentries of the Glitterborn stood guard, all curve and elegance and unnecessary vowels. Rhea counted heartbeats, then slipped forward. The suit did its work. The guards' postures relaxed as she passed, assuming she was someone with too much money and too many opinions. Inside, the diplomacy chamber resembled a Baroque stomach. Curved walls pulsed with light. At the center, surrounded by a semicircle of Unas dignitaries and a holographic retinue of lesser empires, floated a golden platform. On it, not the Emperor himself, but his proxy. It was worse. The Emperor's voice, a construct of memory silk and encoded directive, spoke in modulated frequencies. Its shape was ever shifting. One moment, a childlike priest with star pupil eyes. The next, a serpent made of contracts. It had no soul. It had power. Rhea edged toward the seating ring, each step careful. Her helmet hissed, trying to broadcast her mood as mild curiosity. A diplomatic drone sniffed her, scanned her badge, which read, hilariously, Senior Moisture Negotiator, and let her pass. She sat and listened. Let us align intentions, the voice was saying. Empire offers security, weapon streams, a more glorious future. In return, we request only loyalty and exclusive cultural mining rights on your dead. The Unas murmured in agreeable beige. Rhea's fist clenched. She watched the table. The crown sat there, beside the voice. Not just a symbol. An object of living metal, biologically linked to the Emperor's neural signature, forged from the memory wires of the first starfall. Its presence here was sacrilege and message. Even the Emperor's ornaments could broker deals now. She had one chance. As the chamber entered its ritual period of contemplative fizzing, where a soda gas was released to encourage deep thoughts, Rhea stood. The translator blinked in alarm. You are broadcasting reckless righteousness. She stepped into the center. Gas hissed. The voice tilted. Unscheduled input detected. She reached under her robe, pulled out the plasma dagger, and sliced the voice's throat. No scream, just a sigh of static. The room erupted. Unas flailed, their suits venting embarrassment orange. The glitterborn guards rushed, but she was faster. Her exosuit designed for war, not tea ceremonies. She ducked one blast, kicked a dignitary into a fountain of fermented reasoning, and dove toward the crown. It pulsed as she touched it, then screamed. A psychic shriek, raw and resentful. Not from pain, from recognition. Rhea clutched it close. Attention loyalists, she growled, voice projected through her helmet's amplifier. The Emperor is dead. His voice is silenced. The crown obeys me now. She ran. The blast doors closed too slow. Rhea slipped out, half dragging Yixtal, who had shown up mid-chaos, presumably because he couldn't resist a good monologue. Alarms sounded. Red, yellow, and one irritating shade of teal. Fire suppression bots exploded from the ceiling and sprayed everything with regret-scented foam. Did you just assassinate a memory being? Yixtal shrieked. It was representing tyranny. It was backed up to the cloud. It'll respawn in 10 minutes. Then we have 9. They sprinted through the market. Vendors screamed. Hunters recalibrated. Somewhere, a cult started worshipping her live on stream. She didn't stop. They reached the lift to the upper vault. Inside, she cradled the crown. It was lighter than she expected. Warm. Too warm. You realize, Yixtal panted, you've declared war on the entire empire. I was already dead, remember? Most corpses don't become symbols. I'm not a symbol. I'm a mistake. The lift hissed open into the main concourse. Broadcast screens lit up, feeds taken over. Footage of the chamber. Her face, her words. Replayed on a loop across 50 systems. Her helmet shimmered like a war relic. Her name, unspoken but understood. Yixtal stared. What now? She looked up. Earth's command council had no doubt seen the footage. By now, they were panicking, preparing statements, trying to pin blame on rogue AIs or hallucinations. The Empire would retaliate. Blood would flow. Treaties would snap like brittle code. But something else stirred beneath that, the scent of opportunity. The Emperor wasn't dead. Not technically. But the idea of his death had taken hold. Sometimes, an idea was sharper than any blade. She lifted the crown. It stopped screaming. Began to hum. Yixtal touched his chest in a strangely reverent gesture. You understand what that crown is, don't you? I understand what they think it is. And that's enough to make you a target. Or a queen. I prefer complication. They moved, fast, toward the outer docks. Her stolen armor burned against her skin now. The crown pulsed like a second heart. The market's loudspeakers buzzed, trying to return to normal. No one believed it. Where to now? Yixtal asked. Somewhere noisy. Somewhere lawless. Somewhere no one reads Empire memos. So everywhere. She looked behind them, watching shadows collect in corners. I just bought us time, she said. I'm going to use it. He tilted his head. And then Then I return it with interest. And as they disappeared into the alleys of capitalistic anarchy, somewhere in the high orbit above, the Empire's first fleet picked up the signal. The crown had changed hands, and nothing ever stayed quiet after that. Chaos had a scent, and on Blackgrave Station it smelled like ozone, fear sweat, and deep-fried negotiations. The Emperor's flagship, Indomitable Grace, loomed in orbit now, a vast, Baroque vessel shaped like an angel caught mid-gasp, with weapons arrays that looked suspiciously like confessionals. Its arrival had already turned half the bazaar into dust, and the other half into opportunists. Down in the corridors, screens blared. Crown signature confirmed. Hostile transfer detected. The Empire hadn't just noticed Rhea Mallory. It had declared her a theological accounting error. She ran through a cargo tunnel with Yixtao beside her, the crown wrapped in a protective mesh of kinetic dampeners and prayer cloth, half of which was for show, the other half for confusing security scanners. Alarms screamed. Drones scanned. The walls themselves seemed to vibrate with a kind of expectant panic, like the station wasn't sure if it was about to witness history or become a cautionary tale. "This is escalating," Yixtao noted, panting. Rhea ignored him. "Where's the hangar?" "Down 2 decks. But there's a detachment already sealing off exits." "Figures. They think tactically. You just beheaded their deity's voicemail and stole his hat. It was a strategic hat theft. You need a plan that ends with you breathing." They slid into a service corridor. Rhea's stolen armor was scuffed and humming at a higher pitch, reacting to the crown. The damn thing had moods now. It pulsed with growing heat, sinking to her heartbeat, as if learning her rhythm. The deeper problem wasn't the heat. It was the way the crown liked her. 3 times now it had whispered things, nonverbal, emotional impressions, like a dog pushing its head under her hand. It wanted her to do something, not wear it, not flee. Command. The crown was a relic of obedience, and Rhea was the first person in centuries who'd picked it up and said no. At the checkpoint ahead, 2 glitterborn guards blocked their path. These weren't diplomats, they were executioners. Polished armor. No sarcasm. The one on the left scanned her, paused, and then stepped forward. "Return the crown," it intoned. "The succession is sacred." Rhea stepped in front of Yixtao. If it's so sacred, why was it left on a table like a centerpiece? The guard's armor flushed crimson. Blasphemy is not a defense. Neither is blind obedience. She didn't wait for them to attack. She charged. The crown flared as she moved, bending energy like a storm held in her fist. Her palm opened, and a ripple of violet light threw the closest guard backward into a stack of fusion coils. The other raised his weapon, too late. Rhea grabbed his arm, twisted, and slammed him against the wall. Silence. Then sparks. She stood, panting, over the fallen glitterborn. Her fingers trembled. Not from adrenaline. From recognition. The crown had helped. Yixtao approached slowly, his many limbs fluttering. It responded to your threat reflex. It's not supposed to do that without genetic linkage. Or without permission. I didn't ask. Perhaps that's why it listened. They moved quickly after that, slipping through the still smoldering breach into the auxiliary hangar. The space was cavernous, dark except for the emergency lights that flickered like confused fireflies. Ships were in various stages of panic, pilots scrambling, alarms blaring, some systems rejecting takeoff orders because of philosophical inconsistencies. Rhea found an old courier vessel near the back, unregistered, clearly out of fashion. That one. Yixtao hesitated. It has no weapons, and barely qualifies as spaceworthy. Perfect. No one shoots at garbage. As they approached, a figure dropped from the scaffolding above. Tall, hooded, weapon in hand. General Mallory, it said. You've been promoted to Threat Class Alpha. Congratulations. Rhea sighed. Of course it's an assassin. I was overdue. The figure stepped forward, lowering the hood. A human face. Scarred. Cold. Familiar. Colonel Dale, she muttered. Last time we met, you were giving an inspirational speech about moral command. You really believe that stuff? I still do. Then this is going to be disappointing. He lunged. Their bodies met in a flurry of movement, her armor absorbing the worst of his blows, his blades aiming for joints and soft spots. Dale had once been a rising star in Earth's Shadow Division. He defected to the Empire after what he called ideological suffocation. Now he moved with precision, striking to kill, not maim. But Rhea wasn't just fighting him. She was fighting the memory of every council room she'd been silenced in, every battlefield she'd been sacrificed on, every ally who called her idealism exhausting. And this time, she wasn't alone. The crown surged. Time bent. She saw Dale's movement before he made it, sidestepped, elbowed his ribs. As he staggered, she struck his shoulder, then his neck, then his temple. He collapsed. She stood over him, chest heaving. The crown's hum quieted, almost smug. Yixtal stared. It's not just sinking with you. What then? It's adapting to you. Good. Because I'm not adapting to it. They boarded the ship. The interior was dusty and smelled faintly of fermented lubricant. But the controls worked. Rhea strapped in, crown at her side. Yixtal slithered into the co-pilot's cradle, which protested with an offended squeak. Get us off this rock. Destination. Anywhere without a throne room. The ship groaned to life. Behind them, the station's defense grid activated. Turrets spun. The Empire's blockade locked onto their signal. One voice broke through the comms, high, distorted, holy. You carry what is not yours. Rhea punched the acceleration. Return the crown, and you will be spared. She flicked off the comms. They always offer mercy when they're scared. The ship shuddered, slipping between crossfire. One bolt grazed their wing. Another skimmed the undercarriage. Then open sky. Stars stretched ahead. Behind them, black graves shrank into silence. Yixtal stared at her. You realize they won't stop. Neither will I. And the crown. She looked at it. It pulsed once. Warm. Waiting. I'm not here to wear it, she said. Yixtal tilted his head. Then why take it? She paused. Then answered, not to him, but to herself. Because some things shouldn't be ruled. Only remembered. They flew into the dark, leaving behind a galaxy that had just discovered its faith was fragile, and its future under revision. A week later, the galaxy was still holding its breath. Across 10 systems, statues of the Emperor were quietly dismantled at dawn, replaced by urgent meetings and louder lies. Imperial news feeds spun fever dreams. The crown was stolen by a rebel AI. The crown was misinterpreted by faulty sensors. The crown was never missing at all, but rather traveling on official reflection leave. And yet, every time Rhea Mallory's image resurfaced, a still frame of her holding the crown with blood on her face and fire behind her, something cracked in the mythos of control. Empires didn't fall by force. They fell by question. She didn't care. She had bigger problems. The ship she'd stolen was dying. The oxygen recycler groaned like a hungover poet, and the navigation console now played opera whenever she tried to set coordinates. Somewhere in the coolant system, something lived that occasionally barked. Yixtal sat in the pilot seat, legs folded like an exhausted spider, reading aloud from a treaty between two now-defunct species who'd once argued over the correct way to interpret silence. Rhea stood in the cargo hold, crown in hand. It didn't hum anymore. It watched. She had tried to destroy it once, fired a low-yield imploder into a gravity well, and the crown had floated back up, unharmed and slightly smug. When she locked it in a containment cube, the cube disassembled itself in shame. It wasn't just a symbol. It was a survivor, like her. But that was the thing she hadn't admitted, not to Yixtal, not even to herself. It was choosing her, and she didn't want it. She wasn't a ruler. She wasn't a figurehead. She was the angry ghost of a forgotten war crime, clinging to breath and strategy. Earth hadn't forgiven her. The Empire wanted her splattered across a courtroom. And the rest of the galaxy, bless them, was just enjoying the spectacle. Signal. Yixtal called from the bridge. Military non-empire, but standardized encryption. Rhea joined him, reading the flickering message on the console. To General Mallory, unconfirmed status. From Earth Defense Council redacted. Message: you've become an inconvenience. Stand down and return the crown, or we will negotiate your absence. She stared, then laughed. Even now, she said, they can't bring themselves to say traitor. Just inconvenience. Yixtao turned a page in his treaty. They never hated you for failure, only for succeeding out of turn. Sounds like Earth. Another ping. Local proximity. This one wasn't encrypted. A visual feed blinked on, grainy and overexposed. A glitter-born commander, eyes like prisms, voice like a symphony skipping on a scratch. You carry the crown. The Empire requires its return. Rhea sipped her coffee, which by this point was mostly powdered defiance. If the crown wanted to return, it knows how. The crown does not choose. You sure? It hasn't shut up since it met me. The commander's expression didn't flicker. You cannot hold off the fleet. I'm not planning to. She cut the transmission. Yixtao arched a translucent brow. You have a plan? Not a good one. The ship dipped toward a moon, dead, uninhabited, pocked with impact scars and forgotten mines. What's on it? He asked. An old relay beacon and a deep space amplifier. If we tap it, we can broadcast one last message everywhere. What message? That the Empire lied. That Earth betrayed its own. That the crown can choose. Yixtao was quiet. That's not just heresy. That's a political extinction event. Good. Let's light it. The landing was rough. The ground cracked under the weight of guilt and bad engineering. Rhea stepped out first, the crown tucked under her arm like a cursed football. The wind was thick with silence. They reached the beacon within the hour. A rusted tower sunk half into a crater, still blinking weakly like it was embarrassed to still be alive. Yixtao patched into its core. Rhea stood at the base, her hand resting on the crown. For a moment, she let herself feel the weight, not just of metal, but of meaning. Every tyrant who'd worn it, every world that had burned under its approval. And now her. She activated the feed. Across space, the message pulsed outward. Not words, not threats, images. The assassination, the chamber, the fleeing. The way the crown responded, not to bloodlines, but to choice. She spoke once. I was supposed to die, quiet. Now I'm noisy. You'll have to deal with that. The transmission ended. They waited. 10 minutes later, the sky changed. The first fleet arrived. Not the Empire's, not Earth's, but a loose coalition of ships with patchwork hulls and misfit banners. Pirates, dissidents, deserters, radicals, and people who liked the idea of emperors being uncomfortable. We heard the message. Came one transmission. Thought we'd help you finish the story. Rhea didn't smile, but she looked toward Yixtao, and he did. Then came the Empire. They didn't announce themselves. They simply arrived. 9 warships in full formation. Enough firepower to end a continent. Rhea stepped onto the ridge, crown in hand. The ships hovered like judgment. A voice boomed. Return the symbol. Stand down. Or burn. She looked at the crown. Your choice, she whispered. It flared. She lifted it high. It screamed, once sharp and bright. And then it shattered. 1,000 pieces of living alloy burst into the sky, each fragment burning into a streak of light that arced across the stars. No power surge. No explosion. Just release. The silence that followed was not peace. It was shock. From the Empire. From the fleet. From the galaxy. And from the crown itself, now reduced to dust. A weapon, turned into memory. Rhea dropped her arm. Exhaled. Yixtao approached her slowly. Do you realize what you've done? She nodded. I've ensured no one ever wears it again. They'll come for you. They already did. This time I came back. The fleet hesitated above, then retreated. Not in surrender. In fear of what came next. A woman they couldn't predict. An idea they couldn't kill. And a galaxy that had, for the first time in millennia, remembered it could say no. Rhea stood on the moon's edge, watching the ships vanish. Yixtao touched her shoulder. Now what? She stared into the dark. We find the places that hurt. The ones too small to matter. the ones they forget. And we tell them they were right to resist." He nodded. Together, they boarded the ship. As they took off, a final message pinged from a corner of Earth's resistance network. Unsigned, unverified. 3 words. "Thank you, General." Rhea said nothing, but her silence hummed with peace. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't running. She was beginning. And in the corner of the galaxy, where old gods once whispered, a broken crown no longer sang. It listened.